Gamers, I got into the Wuthering Waves closed beta 2 and I have some things to talk about, alright? So I'm going to segment this off into certain parts in case you want to jump around and just see what parts I'm talking about, my opinions on them. But without further ado, let's just go directly into it. So for example, let's talk about the art. Now, I'm not a crazy fan of this art. It's not terrible art. It's not crazy good art. I do like some of the environmental designs that they have for specific levels, especially some in the story or in the side story. They were pretty cool, you know. They had a cool design, cool kind of motif sort of feel to some of them. It just depends on which one you're talking about. But the open world one is where you're going to be seeing the most of it, and that's kind of the color palette I just wish was a bit more vibrant. It is pretty good, especially on the night sort of side of things, just because the lights really glow up there. You know, the night sky really brights things up a bit more. But whenever it's daytime, it's a little too washed out, a little too bit of on the gray side. I just wish it popped out a bit more. But I don't want to go into the art too much more. Let's go into the combat, which the combat is where I have some of the best things to say about, and it is the most important thing of all of the game in any game. It's how good the game plays. Now, the game plays very nicely. The combat itself, there's so much for you to build craft into, there's so much for you to do, and so much agency and so much of the things that you do that it just feels really nice. It's really refreshing. It puts more agency on every action that you take, which results in a better combat feel. So for example, I'm going to go into some of the aspects of it. You have the concerto meter, which charges over time, which lets you change out with another character, and when you change out to that other character, it activates your character's outro skill and activates that character's intro skill. An outro skill and an intro skill each do different things. Intro skills typically are just damage multipliers, or just do a damaging move. The outro skill, on the other hand, most of the time is a buffing skill. So it will buff your party in a specific way for the new character that's on this field. So you have that going for you. Then you have your echoes, which you can change into, you equip a specific echo and then it does a specific action for you to combo with. You know, you might change into an enemy type, you might just throw an enemy out, an echo out, and then it starts fighting for you like it's Pokemon. It all depends on what echoes you use and how they play and what moves they do. You also have your just basic attacks, real natural thing. You have your E ability, natural thing. You have your ultimate. You also have your resonance meter, which charges over time, and each character has a different way they activate it, a different way that the resonance meter plays into their gameplay, and just a different way that it interacts with the rest of their kit. You also have the relic system, which also changes what your abilities kind of work, how they work. Not necessarily in a big way, but they might give you buffs in specific ways. They might just buff something else. They might even give your team a buff if you do a certain action. For example, I have a relic set on my healer character where when she does an outro, it gives everyone a buff. And then that's on top of her already outro buffing ability that she has passively. So you can see that all of these things are very intertwined, even though we don't have an elemental reaction that other games have. Other games. It goes so much more in depth with other facets of the gameplay that we don't need the elemental reaction, and I think it might even be even more in depth than Genshin Impact when it comes to combat, just because of how much stuff there is that you can do in this game, even with there only being 3 characters that you can do it on. All right, you're missing out on one extra character, yet it feels like you have the exact amount of agency with each character with so much more abilities. It feels like, even though you have one less character, it's pretty incredible feeling. Now, for the story, I just want to say I didn't play all of the story. I did skip around a bit, but the main parts, I got the beginning parts and I got the end parts pretty down solid. The beginning parts, it led up fairly okay, and then it kind of fell off immediately, got boring, you know, just just chugging along. And then we got a cool middle scene that was very short, but it was very cool, grabbed my attention again. Then it started building up pressure, you know, it started picking up again, and then it started feeling good again, which I really enjoyed. It got really good at the end with a nice cutscene, nice boss battle, a nice little puzzle area. It was a good ending, and it left a lot of questions unanswered, which is perfect for this kind of story, which is supposed to be basically a live service game. When I say a lot of unanswered questions, I mean a buttload of unanswered questions. They started throwing questions in there that you didn't even know were questions that could be asked. They gave you like 2 answers and then 50 questions. So be ready for that. Now, the exploration, there are some good sides and downsides to this. There is so many different puzzles. It feels refreshing every time you see one, just because you might do a puzzle and then get like 3 other puzzles that you've never seen before, and then you get to do this other puzzle that you did a while back. Like, there's such a variety, and they space it out in such a nice way that you might do one puzzle and then you won't do that puzzle again for a little while, so it doesn't become stale quickly, since you're jumping around between different kind of puzzles, and then also combat and just, you know, going around the world and exploring things. The one problem that I do face is the enemy placement. There are certain areas in the map where there are no enemies. So you will fight one group of enemies, and then you will be looking for the next group. It will just be a barren, just wasteland. It just feels weird how empty it is. And then on top of that, they'll put materials in that area too, like a bunch of materials, so it feels like you still should go there and collect those materials and keep going in that direction, as if like a cookie trail leading you to the enemies. But once you actually get those materials, it leads you nowhere. It just leads you more to a deserted island, and you're in the middle of nowhere. It just feels like they have really good placement for some areas for enemies, and then really bad placement for other areas. So I really wish they would just fill out the bad areas and maybe scrunch in the good areas just a tiny bit more, just so we get some more combat going, or make the enemies a little bit more tankier, because I'm destroying them right now. I know this is just open world content, and I'm already at like max level right before I go to the next world level, so like I'm peak of my ability to kill these things, but I just wish they were a bit more tanky, just a slight bit more, just so I can, you know, do some combos before they die. I do want to talk, I know I jumped to exploration after talking about the story. Let me go talk about this side story with Ji-Yuan, I think is the name. That story, now when they were saying that the original story for this game was bad and they had to rewrite 90% of it, I found the 10% they saved. Okay, I found it, guys, I found it. Jin-Yuan's story is just like, it's this wholesome, just nothing burger. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna be really nice, we're just doing a little summer event, and then it goes into some emo, my dark past, talking about some sad stuff, and it plays out so comically. It feels like they're trying so hard to make me care before I even slightly knew I was supposed to care. Like they even had a dramatic ending, like a sad pause ending, like wah wah. Oh, look at Jin-Yuan. You still want to pull on him though, huh? He's just such a sad little boy. It's like who? Like what? I don't care. So it was comically bad. I want other people to talk about this because of how funnily bad it was to me. Okay, all right. Please don't let me be the only one. Next off, I'm gonna do a quick side note. The music in this game, really good. It's got some great pieces. The boss fight music really stands out. I believe, I want to say most, if not all, of the boss fights have their own distinct musical theme to go with them, which is really nice thing to add, especially when you go to the motorcycle, the Ghost Rider boss fight. That boss fight had some banger music. It hit. All right, it left me speechless. I can't even talk right now thinking about it. It was very, very good. All right, so all in all, this game, I have some concerns, a few, but it's a very nice game. It is very good. There's even the small parts that I could argue about in this video, feels leagues below the importance of everything else that is just doing its job. So I can argue about, you know, the small little bugs or the enemy spacings. I could argue that all day, but at the end of the day, you got fun combat. The story's good enough, good music. You got fun puzzles, exploration's good. What else do you need? What else? I mean, you got everything else filled out. So this is a just quick summarization of how I feel about the game. I'm gonna keep playing it every day. Come check me out on YouTube. I mean, this is my YouTube. What am I saying? Come check me out on Twitch as well. I will stream on both sites. I will be posting a video every day talking about this game, going further into depth into more aspects of it. But yeah, thank you guys for coming and watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, Johnny.